Okay, once you get your Dashlogic plugged in and flicked over to config mode, there's a little switch. Make sure it's on configure. The little red light will come on saying it's connected. Plug it into your laptop. Go to this website, Solimeter. Look up your controller because they're specific to vehicles. And it took me a while to find this, but it's not in. There's a spot in here for resources and software. It's not in software. If you scroll down into this paragraph of description and read it, nobody reads it, but down here it says download software here. Click on that, and it'll bring you up, and you'll get this set up. You go back and disconnect. Disconnect. It'll look like this when it comes up. So you make sure everything's plugged up. Go ahead and connect. Select your profile. You have 3 profiles, so whichever one you want to save. And this is where it gets insane. This thing has so many options. You can spend days in here doing this. So the Camaro, or at least mine, I've got a 2012 Zl1. So you've got the heads-up display, the driver information center, which is like in between your clusters, your radio, alarms, calculations for like your AFR wideband. You can import and export. So let's go to this heads-up display. On this you have 8 pages, I believe is what it is. Yeah, 8 pages. Each one of these you can configure any which way you want. I usually just do, I've done a couple playing around, but you can do simple or advanced. If you do advanced, you're going to have to write your own code for whatever you want to display. If you go to simple though, it'll give you a drop down menu. So you can do a drop down menu. And it is everything that your ECU can see is in this list. So you can go down and click on whichever one you want. Right now I have this one set to, let's see, intake air temp. So after like after your blower, your intake temp 2 is what it is. But you can have 4 settings. You set them up and save. Once you click on one, you can reset if you want to. Okay, so once you get your 4 picked, whichever 4 you want, you hit cancel, and you can go back and set up each page that way. Now this is only going to show up on page 3 of whichever display you pick. So like that's in the heads-up display. If you go to driver information center, you've got 8 more settings, and they can be different, but you have to remember that say you're on page 3 on the heads-up display, you're going to be on page 3 on the driver information center and such. So if you want to set up both displays at the same time, do 3, 3, whatever, or 1, 1, whatever. So right now I've got my heads-up display set. I usually use 3. And driver information center, same thing, I use 3. So I've got 4 set up. And you can have different ones on each display. So all those 4 settings don't have to be the same on your heads up or display or your driver information center. So that gives you, that's 8 right there that you can have displayed at the same time on one page. So page 3, and then you've got page 1 through 8. So was it 64 different displays you can put up at the same time. Then you can also go to the radio, and it has 2 on each one. So say you go to page 3 like I use, and there's 2 settings there, and they'll display on your radio when you hit information center. I'll show you here in a second. You can set up alarms. If you go to alarms, there's some presets, and you can set up different things that you want. This is just a simple RPM limit for 6,000. It just beeps and says RPM limit on your display when you want it to. You can load or look up. Let's see. No, don't do. Just back up. Cancel. Okay, so you got several of those alarms that you can set up. Then your calculations. This is where you set up like your. So you got a wideband plugged in. It's not going to know how to read it, so you're going to have to go in here and do a little math calculation. You can usually look them up. They're pretty simple, but Just make sure you get the parentheses in the right areas and such, and you can name it whichever you want. Mine's set up for a PLX wideband. I'll show you where I plug it up and whatnot, but that's the calculation you need to make it display. Nope, don't clear, cancel. And if you want to display that on your, say, heads-up display, so you go to heads-up display, mine's on page 3, go to simple. Alright, you can name it whatever you want, but you have to make sure you go in here and click on the right one. So I've renamed mine. Mine says PLX wideband, but whichever one you rename it to will be displayed here, 1 through 7 or such, or custom. Just make sure you pick the right one. Alright, let's go out to the car and plug it up, and I'll show you what it does in the car. It's pretty insane. I got this because I didn't want the gauges on the side, on the pillar. I had that in my old car, and I didn't mind it. I don't mind the look. It's fine. It just got on my nerves, and I would see it in like peripherals and such, and I would find myself staring at it, and I'm already looking at the displays anyway, so in between the cluster or the heads-up display, so why not just use them for something? I'll show you that and show you the downsides to it here in just a second. Let me go up to the car. Okay, so now we're in my car. This is Tiffany. This is my Zl1. I'll show you the car later. But so you plug it into your OBD2 port. It stays plugged in the whole time. It turns itself on and off, so you don't have to worry about it killing your battery or anything. This wire right here is for my PLX wideband that's plugged in here. That's the analog out, and it comes in, and they send you this plug. You just wire it in and plug it up. Make sure you're on the right profile. There's 3 profiles depending on which one you programmed in the computer. So mine's on 1. I don't care for. It's not the Dashlogic's fault. It's the Camaro. These things, the OBD2 port's kind of in an inconvenient spot, I guess. But you have to be careful. Don't kick it when you come in your car. I don't have a problem with that, but I'll show you now, starting up the car, and show you what it displays. So let's see here. Turn that down. When you turn it on, you go to navigation, and it'll power up. Don't worry, Dashlogic, display controller. Okay, version, whichever version you're using, whatever. And it'll show your display, whichever one you picked earlier. Okay, I don't know if you can see my heads-up display, but it's also displaying in my heads-up display. There you go. And also, if you go to your radio and hit info, it'll show up whatever you displayed on that page in your radio. Now this is kind of weird. So, to control the Dashlogic, to change whichever display 1 through 8 that you want it to show, you have to go to your door lock and hit the lock button. You'll actually hear it click, and it'll tell you what page you're on. So page 3. Okay. So now it's showing. This is oh Lord, I forgot what I said that because I changed it. Boost. That's my wideband, not retard, and actual degrees that it's seeing in the car. And then if you look up here in my heads up, I don't know if you can see that, but it's showing several different things. Intake temp, my wideband, short-term fuel, manifold. I can't remember. I'll have to go look. I changed them. And then the same thing. It'll show you the same thing on your radio, whichever you picked. If you don't want it to display that, obviously you can go back to your radio, you know. So whichever one you want. Okay. It doesn't really lag. Every now and then it'll freeze, and I find sometime it's very rare. All I do is unplug it, plug it back up. It reboots, goes right back into showing displays or whatever you want. It's pretty responsive. Like, it keeps up pretty well. I actually was surprised about this thing. So the only downside is where it's located. You can kick it if you're not careful. I'll go through the displays again. And like I said, each one of those pages is, there's 4 that you can display here, 4 that you can display here, and 2 that you can display on your radio. So it gives you, what is it, 10 displays at each page times 8, and they can all be different. So you can have, I don't know, hundreds of different displays if you wanted to. The whole reason I got it though is, for what I'm using it for, the cost and whatnot, it just makes sense. And I don't so much mind it being down there. I've thought about getting an OBD2 extender, and you can get a cable that goes from that, and you can maybe put it over into your glove box and hide it or something. But for my purposes, it's fine. I watch when I get in and out of the car and things like that, and it seems to work great. So yeah, I just thought I'd give y'all an idea what I thought of it. I just didn't want the gauge clusters right here or in the vent. For me, they're fine. They work great and everything. I don't dislike them. I don't care for them being there. It's all it is. We have displays here, so why not use them? You know what I mean? Each their own. I mean, I just thought I'd give you all my thoughts on it. There you go. Good old Tiff.